According to the National Health Service in the UK, around 2 million women are affected with endometriosis. As part of our Health Series week, we look at what causes what tends to be a long-term chronic condition and the treatments out there available. Stay tuned for this and more only on Women's AM. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sisters, and welcome to another show of Women's AM. We've been having our health series this week looking at various issues related to women, and today we'll be discussing endometriosis as well as future stories. And we are holding our weekly competition this week, so stay tuned for that. My name is Adama, and on today's panel we have sisters Liz and Hassana, and we'll be having our special guest on later on, Diane Mills. Assalamu alaikum, you guys. It's great to see you again this week. Alhamdulillah. I've just got an email, a very beautiful email, mashallah, from a sister who contacted us quite recently. She says, Salam, hope everyone is well, alhamdulillah, jazakumullah khairan, sisters, for covering the previous issues raised. Alhamdulillah, I've learned a lot. I love watching Women's AM, alhamdulillah. I feel really upset when my Skybox plays up and fails to record the programme as I can't always watch it on time due to busy mummy chores, alhamdulillah. I find the programme so fruitful. You can never have enough knowledge. The more you learn, the more life opens up, inshallah. May Allah reward all the sisters on the panel for working hard to provide us sisters, as well as brothers, with very important knowledge. May it be of benefit to us all, Ameen. I wanted to know if you'd be able to tackle topics on the maid-servant stigma, where husbands or mother-in-law, sister-in-laws feel as soon as the bride comes into the house, she is the so-called maid, not a daughter or sister joining the family. Please let me know if you'll be able to cover this. I know you probably have lots and lots of emails from sisters. I'd be so grateful if you could let me know by email what day you could cover this on your programme. That's quite interesting email.
Really interesting topic, isn't it? It comes up a lot. A lot of people are talking about this issue. So
I mean, I know we are covering, you know, in the pipeline, we have got a couple of marriage topics coming up, and this is something that we have previously talked about, but I think it is something that does need to continue to be talked about because it is a big issue. And, you know, the sister's coming from a really sincere point of view when she's wanting us to talk about this, because often if you just kind of, you know, leave the topic and you don't discuss it out of fear of you know, kind of, you know, almost being stigmatized or raising a few kind of alarm bells along the way, then it's just going to carry on.
Absolutely, definitely.
And that's the thing, it's an ongoing issue, isn't it? It's not something that, you know, is going to be resolved in, you know, kind of overnight. So I think to kind of keep revisiting. And if she's having some issues with the Skybox, you can obviously watch us on islamchannel.tv as well, inshallah, when the show goes live. Well, let's go on to our first segment of the show, News Bites. In this segment, we take a look at stories of interest in the media, and you can, of course, give us your comments and thoughts on any of the pieces by calling. The number is on your screen. So I'm going to start with you, Sister Hassana. What have you got for us today?
Yeah, I've got a really interesting one from The Telegraph, and the headline is, Period Pain, It Really Can Make Women Perform Worse in Their Jobs. Okay, for me, really strange. Why are we only just talking about this now? I can't quite understand it. But basically, the University of Bath has conducted some research. And they, you know, questioned a few women when they were menstruating and when they weren't, and they got them to do basic computer tasks, and they found that when the women were on their period, they found it difficult to do the tasks, and including multitasking or problem solving. It was a little bit harder for them to complete those tasks than when they weren't menstruating. So obviously the study has found that periods do have an impact on the way a woman is able to deal with situations. For us, this is very, you know, common knowledge. We realise this ourselves. But, you know, there's lots of things that have come out of this article which I found really, really interesting. One of the doctors who led the study, he says, I think the most interesting thing that we found is the sort of common everyday pain does have an effect on performance. This shows the effects of pain go way beyond the sensory experience, affecting what we think and feel. And I think this is something we often forget. You know, we talk about period pain, and sometimes we just kind of expect it to just get on with it. You know, how bad can it really be? Is it really that bad? And often we don't understand that for some people it can be really, really difficult to manage the type of pain that they're feeling. Some people get it worse than others, and I don't think there's enough sensitivity about this topic. I don't think we're talking about it enough and understanding it enough. You know, there's lots of things that have come out. For example, we know that 40% of women on a regular basis experience quite, you know, a period pain to some extent, and 15% experience it's like very, very severe pain to the point where they're either vomiting or fainting at times because of the pain they're feeling.
And then, I mean, it's really, I mean, subhanAllah, even myself when I was growing up, I did have that worry, how would I cope if I have very, very bad menstrual pains at work, because, you know, because it can be very, very bad for a lot of sisters, as you can imagine. And it actually brings me back to how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala excuses us for salah. You know, that is a very important everyday task for any Muslim woman as well as a Muslim man, and yet we are excused of that.
You know, the other thing I'm kind of thinking about is also, is there enough kind of sensitivity within, for example, the family unit, or even if you're married, from your spouse or from your family at that time, because sometimes people don't understand.
I think there really isn't, and I think it's kind of drummed into us, you know, from a young age, that actually, like you say, you kind of just have to put up and shut up, basically. I can remember even at school we were told, you know, don't think that, you know, period pains or anything around that as an excuse for not coming into school or not doing PE or exactly.
But it is the biggest cause of absenteeism, not only with young girls but also with women as well. So I definitely think we need to look into this more. And I know there's you know, sometimes people just kind of resort to taking medicines and things like that to resolve the problem. But the reality is, even if you take away the pain, there are still those kind of things that are happening to you during that time. So it's not possible to completely, you know, stop what you're feeling. It's just not possible.
It's true, and it does fluctuate as well, you know, from month to month. You can have sort of good months and bad months, so it's not like you're always going to be dealing with it in the same way.
The thing is, we're always reminded, of course, of what the Prophet ﷺ used to do, and during this time he was subhanAllah, so sweet with his, you know, especially with Aisha radiallahu anha. When she was menstruating, he would put his head in her lap and recite Quran, and he would sit there and, you know, comb her hair, and she would comb his hair, and it just makes me think, you know, subhanAllah, he understood. And you know, it does make me wonder why we don't see kind of more of this nowadays as well.
We'll be looking about this a little bit more into our topic when we speak about endometriosis, inshallah. So we'll move on now to Liz.
Yeah, my article for this morning is from the HuffPost, and the title reads, "I'm done making my kids' childhood magical." And it sounds, you know, it sounds like a really depressing title.
I did think that. I was like, what are you making us read this morning?
Well, actually, when you actually read the article, I have to say I did agree with the vast majority of it. It's kind of talking about comparing the way we are as parents today with maybe our parents' generation or even our grandparents' generation, when a lot less on having these big themed birthday parties or having your kids dressed up to the nines in the latest fashion and that kind of thing. And it really is talking a lot about how materialism has come to define your relationship with your children and how good a parent you are. And it comes to the point where it's not about, okay, what's best for my children. It's about, oh, well, my neighbour had a really big party for their children and you know, they're all in these fashionable clothes, so, you know, I have to do that as well, otherwise I might look like I'm a worse parent. So it's very much keeping up with the Joneses kind of an attitude. One point that she did make in the article, she kind of grouped doing craft activities in with this kind of unnecessary fluff around parenthood, and I don't agree with that. I actually think it's you know, it's a really valuable thing to do with your children, to kind of engage in these activities.
I do kind of get what she was saying about in terms of the craft things. There's a lot of these websites nowadays, you know, they have these really incredible pictures of children's birthday parties and what they look like, and the amazing decorations that they put, and when you see these, you almost in your head, you're like, oh, I could take that for the party and that and this, and you end up kind of going really extravagant because you're trying to fulfill this picture you have in your head of the perfect party or whatever it is for your child. So I kind of understand where she's coming from, but again, I do think crafts, you know, that is beneficial if you're doing that with your child.
When I was reading this, I did definitely agree that, you know, we have come to the point where perhaps parents value their relationship with children on a very materialistic level, but at the same time, I think she came away with this thinking that all parents have the same intention when they do these. So, for example, she talked about vacations, like sending your children on vacation. Now, for some parents, that might be a way of educating their child in a different way that they couldn't do if they were in their hometown, for example. But it is quite an interesting article, isn't it?
You know, it did make me think about the way Islam instructs us to bring up children.
Yeah.
You know, and this issue, you know, from 0 to 7, you know, we play with our children. You know, the next stage, 7 to 14, you're teaching them, you're guiding them, teaching them Quran, instilling those values in them, and then 14 to 21, you're their friend, their companion, and you know, you'll be consulting with them on certain issues. So this is how the relationship is defined Islamically, and I actually think that's a really valuable way of looking at it, because this way everybody knows what their role is at certain times, and everybody gets what they need out of the relationship.
But you know, even just coming back to basics, my childhood, I remember I had the best fun when there was like very little, you know, when we were just out in the park. And we didn't have a lot of toys and games. But it was
television,
just,
really, wasn't it?
Absolutely. So, you know, I kind of do think going back to basics sometimes is not necessarily a bad thing.
But I do think as well it is a different time, isn't it, from when we grew up. And I know I certainly wouldn't let my kids, you know, play outside from, you know, 8 to 8 like I did.
Yeah, definitely. That is very true. Absolutely.
But it's about letting your child kind of discover, you're allowing your child to discover, for example, their own sort of the activities that they want to get involved in, and not necessarily sort of ramming it down their throat, which is probably what she was getting at in the blog as well. But you know, quite interesting article there. Okay, mashallah, we'll be taking a short break, but when we come back, we'll go into our main discussion, where we'll be speaking about endometriosis and its effects. So we'll see you after the break. Assalamu alaikum.